how do you do, boys and girls? My name is Alfred Hitchcock.
You want burgers, hot dogs, some chicken, and ribs. Yeah! Yeah! Yeah!
I think I saw a murder across the street.
Oh my God.
The last thing we did some voyeurism on was when our neighbors were fucking with the windows open. Remember that? Remember across the street?
Oh, I do remember.
Felt like a Jimmy Stewart that day.
What do you mean the last time?
I think he's giving it to her across the street there.
Oh my God.
Lisa.
I voyeurize all the time.
I know. I love people
That's why
watching.
I work at
I love
Walmart
people
now.
watching. Yeah. Now you really get to watch some people.
Yeah.
Now you really
yeah.
get to watch it. But made me wonder what the fuck you just tuned into. Welcome to Night of the Horrorphile, a horror movie and genre film podcast where we take a horror movie and genre film and show it to my beautiful wife, Brittany, who then gives us her input. And sometimes she enjoys these things and sometimes she does not. It's Classics Month. And what did we watch this week?
I don't know why I love the name of this movie so much. Rear Window.
See, when I told you that, you were like, sounds like a porn.
Yeah.
I was like, hey, it's not. It's not, though. I swear, man. I wonder how many Rear Window porns there has been made. You know, how many porn parodies of Rear Window have been made?
Probably a lot.
Rear Entry or what?
Oh God.
But this movie has spawned so many copycats and so many people have taken inspiration from this movie. It's not even funny. I mean, Brian De Palma's Body Double. You could throw a fucking dart at a bunch of movies and probably find something that took influence from Rear Window.
Oh yeah.
Especially Hitchcock's directing. It's a movie that many of your snooty film professors at your school will say is one of the greatest films ever made. I'm inclined to kind of agree with them for this one time. This is a great movie. Based on a short story, It Had to Be Murder by Cornell Woolrich, which was part of a collection of 6 stories that, I think Paramount obtained the rights to at the time. We could argue if Rear Window is definitely one of Hitchcock's finest. I think it's a big contender for that. A lot of people would tell you Vertigo or Psycho. I think it's Psycho and this. I think these are his best. And I chose these 2 Hitchcock movies because, as you guys know, and you know, that we covered Psycho at the beginning of September. And so now we're back with Hitchcock. And I chose these because they're the most accessible, too. You know, they're the most easy watches.
Oh, yeah. You
know, I don't know of too many people who have sat down and watched Psycho or Rear Window and have said they haven't liked it.
Mm.
It's the ones with less confusing themes, I would say.
Right, right.
They're easy to handle. They're not so, and like a movie like Vertigo is a little much for some people. You know, it's a little harder to handle. Not saying that you have to be fucking smart. That's not what I'm talking about. It's just some people don't get into Vertigo. Some people don't get into his film Rope or these others. But the majority of people agree that Rear Window and Psycho, like they all love those movies, except for, the people who are like, I don't watch anything that doesn't start in the 80s. Like,
oh, right.
Yeah, you know those motherfuckers are out there. But But it also represents Hitchcock's most successful experiments in pure cinema. He was constantly experimenting, see what he could do, see what kind of boundaries he could push a little further. It's why in, I believe Vertigo was the first movie to use CGI technically, because those opening credits are all digital effects. So, but this one is shot entirely at Paramount Studios on an enormous indoor set modeled after a real courtyard at 125 Christopher Street in New York. Although in the movie, this is set in Greenwich Village courtyard is where this one is set. But I think he modeled it after Greenwich and Christopher Street. So because he would send out photographers to get pictures of both.
Okay, so I'm going to ask this, and I'm not trying to be mean. Is it Greenwich or is it Greenwich?
It might be Greenwich. I've always said I'm from Oklahoma. So it's probably another word I'm mispronouncing.
Okay, I wasn't trying to be mean. I'm just trying. I could almost bet you.
I don't know. It's probably Greenwich,
It's
but you know how
Greenwich.
I am. I just something about Greenwich sounds fun, doesn't it? Like Greenwich Village.
Maybe not New York.
True. But this movie came from the fallout Hitchcock had with the Warner Studios. Before this, he had worked with them on Dial M for Murder, Strangers on a Train, and of course the aforementioned Rope, which was his first movie with Jimmy Stewart, who we'll get to later. But they had a falling out, and that's when Hitchcock was approached by Paramount. Now, they cut a deal with him and to have him shoot a bunch of these short stories they recently acquired, what I mentioned earlier. And with John Michael Hayes, he got brought in to work on the screenplay with Alfred Hitchcock, and that's where Rear Window came in. Now, Hitchcock, aside from a few shots at the end and there's a certain dog scene, he shot all this entirely in the confines of that apartment that Jeffries, our hero, played by Jimmy Stewart, inhabits. And this was done to enhance the confinement, but also explore a theme which is very important to the film, voyeurism.
Right.
You know, it's something, this film, of all Hitchcock's really does represent that idea that voyeurism is so connected with cinema, which it kind of is, the idea that we know it's wrong to spy on others without them knowing. Sure, that's wrong, but aren't we all kind of voyeurs when we go to the movies? It's a nice little theme to kind of think about.
Oh yeah.
I mean, I think, in my opinion, I think we're all natural voyeurists. I mean, we love looking in on somebody. It's why reality television took off. I mean, for something we might have to do out in public, we get to do from the confines of our own living space.
But that's exactly reality TV, social media, YouTube, fucking TikTok, stuff like that. Like, that's all voyeurism.
Oh yeah. I mean, people, there's a lot of people who like to codify it as people watching. You'll hear those people. I like to people watch, which I say it too. I'm guilty of that too. But you'll hear that all they're doing is just saying I'm a voyeurist.
Right.
I like that. Voyeurism doesn't necessarily have to do with sex.
Right.
I should clear that up. There is a voyeurist fetish, or whatever. There is voyeurism in sex, but it doesn't necessarily mean straight up sex.
I am very much a voyeurist. I want to watch everything that everybody's doing.
Exactly. Because, 9 times out of 10, you have somebody walk past an open window and there's somebody over across the way. They don't have to be getting undressed or anything like that, but they're doing something with their windows open. Mm-hmm. 9 times out of 10, the person's going to stop and watch. It doesn't matter. They know it's kind of wrong. That's someone's life over there. They're able to live,
But if you're putting your life out there,
yeah,
let's just, yeah.
In a great conversation that I suggest you all find and read, which, by the way, read everything. Every fucking interview with Alfred Hitchcock you can. That man had some fascinating opinions and stuff.
Oh, really?
I mean, he ended up kind of sympathizing with the murderer in this movie because, I mean, he's trying to live his life over there, albeit murderous.
Right.
But then, here comes this guy kind of impeding into his personal life, And so in that way, it's kind of, you could go both ways with that. Sort of. I mean, he's murdering.
Right.
But with an interview with Francois Truffaut, Hitchcock said, he said this, and to quote him, "I'll bet you 9 times out of 10, people, if they see a woman across the courtyard undressing for bed or even a man puttering around in his living room, will stay and look. No one turns away and says, it's none of my business. They could pull down their blinds, but they never do. They stand there and look out." Now, to me, Rear Window acts kind of on the thesis of that,
Oh,
this is definitely an exercise in that, but with a lot to talk about, let's dive into Rear Window from 1954.
So, famous photographer L.B. Jeffries is held up in his apartment. And he's watching Lee paint all of these dicks. And all he wants to know is why there's so many dicks everywhere. What is happening? There's just dicks everywhere.
Oh, that's a little bit of true life there because I have been constantly crafting dicks in this house and it is ridiculous.
Nobody wants to see. Nobody wants to see inside here.
The penis is a very central part of my movie that I'm doing. And dear God, I told Brittany after this, I need to do a children's movie or something because this is too much.
Too many dicks in this house.
But back on that set, as I talked about just for a second, this thing cost $100,000 or more, like over $100,000 went on this set to build it. And a team of 50 people led by designers Hal Pereira and Joseph McMillan, they constructed all this indoors. The courtyard alone was about 98 feet wide, 180 feet long, and 40 feet high. 6 stories this was. Like, oh, wow. The apartments they built, some of the apartments had running water and stuff into them, and some people actually stayed in those apartments. I believe 12 out of them were fully furnished. So they spent a lot of time on this shit and a lot of detail. If you notice, like you look in these rooms when we get the close up of somebody doing something, everything's so detailed. Like, and they took the time to do that.
Well, yeah, people live there.
Yeah. But to do this, they had to remove the soundstage floor to get this to fit in there and started construction in the basement level of this studio. And to help you envision this, Jeff's apartment, while being on the second floor in this movie, is actually street level in real life.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, so that's how deep they had to go down.
That's what she said. Sorry.
No. Now, it all being indoors provided an issue. How to light this thing and make it look like outdoors. You had to make it look like the sun was out in certain shots, but they couldn't very well bring in the sun, which, they didn't have that much money. So they did the next best thing. They dragged in every light that Paramount had on the lot that wasn't being used by other movies, hooked them all up, and that ended up being about 1,000 arc lights, these big lights, and then 2,000 smaller lights. So it's a lot of fucking lights.
That is a lot of lights.
And you got to remember, this is back in the day. These aren't LEDs or nothing. These are just big fucking lights.
So it's hot.
Yes. And in fact, it was so hot that sometimes it would set off the sprinklers regularly. The indoor sprinklers would go off. At times, like Alfred Hitchcock would have to bring an umbrella and just fucking sit there and then hold the umbrella up when the sprinklers went off.
Oh, wow.
So, changes with these, because you see in the movie, we go from afternoon, we go morning, we go night, evening. We have so many different times of the day represented here. And to do that, it took an hour to change the settings on these lights to make it look like that. So it took a whole crew an hour to do this in between that.
Well, good thing dude was just sitting there most of the time. No, just kidding.
Well, and that's another thing, that's one thing that gets pulled off here is the setting is so small. We don't go out in the outside world very much. Mm-hmm. I think maybe once at the very end we get outside the apartment.
Right.
And that also provides a little bit of relief for the audience. We get out of that apartment for a second. But no, like all this takes place in LB Jeffries' apartment. I know. It's hard to pull off.
And it's weird because you say that, and that's true. I watched the movie. It doesn't feel like
there's so much going on in this movie.
Yeah.
And it has to do with the other neighbors and stuff like that. Fully fleshed out lives you're living here. Because we start out, everybody's waking up in the morning. That's how we start this movie. And so like you gotta like, it's so hard to pull this off. It doesn't sound like it, but you have one setting, you have one person that you're following. You have other people reacting to them, but the whole movie is just him looking out instead of us looking in. So, so that's a very hard thing to pull off, and this movie does it because I've said, I've seen so many copycats of this movie, whether they admit it or not. I've seen a lot of those and a lot of them fail because it's hard to keep you interested.
Right. The first time I tried to watch this, I fell asleep just because I'm that type of person. But
I will say that the reason for that, I feel like, though, is that these movies, these older movies, they are relaxing.
Oh, yeah.
It's like cracking open a good book. These movies are,
Oh, yeah. But when I woke up, what I was watching on Peacock, it went to another movie. that was almost exactly like this,
That's what I'm saying. Yeah.
but like it was like a woman, and
It's like worse.
and I was like, this is the same shit that I just was watching. What?
And it's funny because it is a simple type of story.
Yeah.
You know, and you would think that it would be easy to do. Like you think, well, anybody in the world could do this movie, but it seems like Hitchcock is the only one to really do it well, like we'd see here. I think the only other person to really be able to kind of pull it off, to me, in my opinion, you guys, I'm sure everybody loves a movie that's kind of like this, but to me, the only other person to really do it to this extent was Brian De Palma. And we've talked about De Palma on movies we've covered of his. He was a huge fan of Hitchcock.
Oh yeah.
He studied him. So like that's the other person who could do that with Body Double.
So famous photographer L.B. Jeffries is held up in his apartment in New York while he recovers from breaking his leg. He's watching people that have their windows open because of the heat wave. And I was like, they don't have air conditioners? And you were like, no.
Not everybody had AC back in the day, you know?
Right. And I bet you they still don't, because I really thought about this. Up north, they don't have ACs like we do down here.
No. And this is taking place in New York. So, yeah.
That makes sense to me now. Just at the moment, I was like, what? Why is it so hot?
AC aside, though, I would love an apartment like this. I love this courtyard setting and stuff like that. I would love to live in something like this.
Why? So you can watch people in their windows?
You know, let's just admit it, yes.
Yes.
Like, it just seems very cool, you know?
Right. So he talks to his editor on the phone because he works for a magazine. And he says that if he doesn't get out soon, he's going to get married, and he doesn't want to get married. He does not want to.
Yeah, they established early on that LB is like this. He's a traveler. He's a man of the world and stuff. He doesn't let something hold him down. So marriage is his biggest fear.
Right.
In this movie so far. Now we get an awesome example of the show don't tell the thing here for the first like 20 minutes of this movie. We get all the introductions to all the neighbors, you know, Miss Torso, Miss Lonely Hearts, the piano man up in the corner.
Yeah.
We get all the introductions to them right out of the way, and we get to learn who Jeff is, you know, how he's gotten into this predicament, all without a single shred of dialogue.
Right.
And you got to love that because you immediately know how he broke his leg without a damn person explaining anything, because you start out, he pans the camera around and you see the broken camera, and then you see a picture of the crash, and then, goes through all of it, and you're immediately set up. We're good to go. And I love that. And that's another thing that's kind of hard for people to do. You know, it seems like I watch a lot of indie films, people starting out, filmmakers and stuff like that. That's a hard thing to approach, because a lot of indie filmmakers want to stop dead and tell you. You know, where it's like, but if you do it well, you can just show me the story you're telling.
Right.
You know, we're working with a visual medium, and you can tell like Hitchcock loved this. I don't know how to explain it very thoroughly, but you can tell with each shot like this, where he's explaining things visually, he is fucking loving it. And he did. He said he out of all his movies, he said he loved this one a lot for the way he could fucking sit there and tell you something visually, completely visual.
Right.
Of course, playing Jeff, we have the wonderful James Jimmy Stewart. We all do some shitty impersonations of him, but impressions or whatever. But he caught huge success with the film Winchester 73. That was the first movie that really set him off to a household name. He was acting before that, mostly Westerns.
Okay.
But I've always felt like, you know, Jimmy Stewart, the 50s belonged to him. Like James Stewart was fucking huge in the 50s. And he was kind of seen as this nice guy, ordinary everyman kind of person, you know. And I'd say a great example of a current actor that would be along these lines is Tom Hanks.
Okay.
Yeah, Tom Hanks is that normal, everyday kind of guy. That's who you get to play, the everyday man, you know, the ordinary guy, you know. And so it's to think of him playing a villain is kind of weird. I mean, he has recently, you know, he was in Baz Luhrmann's Elvis as Colonel Parker. he plays like a snidely whiplash Colonel Parker in that movie, but
nice.
But James Stewart was along the same way, and Hitchcock said James Stewart was his favorite actor to work with. I mean, they would go on to work at least 4 times.
Holy crap.
Yeah, starting with 1948's Rope. Jimmy Stewart accepted this role before even reading the script. You know, he took off with it. And I think with Hitchcock, you get to see more of the steel that's beneath the mush that was James Stewart, because everybody knows when you mention Jimmy Stewart, everybody immediately goes to It's a Wonderful Life.
Oh. Sure. Everybody but me. I've never even seen that movie.
Clarence. The angel's gonna get his wings.
Okay.
It's my shitty Jimmy Stewart impersonation. But no, normally people go to that. And so they think Jimmy Stewart, Warm and Fuzzies, right? And I feel like with Hitchcock, you get a lot more. You know, you get a lot more of his menace and a lot more of what he was capable of. I mean, Hitchcock turns him into a hero in most of the movies that he's in. Like with Rope, you know, he's the smart guy who's figuring out the 2 men's murder. You know, he's the one who's figuring it out and putting it all together. And so I think out of Jimmy Stewart's entire filmography, I love the Hitchcock movies more than any of them. You know, even over It's a Wonderful Life, even though it's a great Christmas movie, but I still think Hitchcock was really able to bring more of Jimmy Stewart to the screen. But they worked together, like I said, about 4 times. And Jimmy Stewart waived his salary for this movie and chose to do it just for the film's profits, part of the profits.
Oh, that's cool.
And out of their entire collaboration, this Stewart said was his favorite to do. But even though the two made some great art, they weren't without their disagreements. It's been said Stewart he had a big old ego. Yeah. I mean, and you got to remember, like 1954, 1955, he's on top of the fucking world. I think it was Wendell Corey, who plays the detective here in a little bit, who said that, like, he had a big old ego. Corey did not like Jimmy Stewart.
Oh, no.
No. And Hitchcock and him did clash. You know, they would fight over mostly artistic ideas, but they had a weird way of talking while filming. It's been said that, like, Hitchcock didn't really he wouldn't stop dead and tell people they did something bad. You know, you kind of just had to know you did bad. Or he'd kind of codify it like the scene was tired or something like that. You know, he'd say it's like something like that. And you'd know, oh, we didn't give enough energy into this thing. But he wouldn't really stop. Like some people said, you'd look at him and if he looked like he was going to throw up, that's how you know the scene was bad. But Jimmy Stewart and him kind of communicated through looks. People on the set said they would kind of like Jimmy Stewart would look at him a certain way and Hitchcock would know, okay, let's redo that take.
Just look at him?
Yeah, they would just like give each other like almost like a coded language almost between the actor and the director to where they knew they could communicate and stuff like that. And I just find that fascinating, you know, that like an actor and a director could mesh that well.
Right. That's cool.
Yeah, because I mean, I think before this, not long before Rope, or I guess somewhere in between that or something, North by Northwest, which was Hitchcock and Cary Grant. Oh, yeah. That was a Cary Grant movie Hitchcock did. And Hitchcock said he liked Jimmy Stewart over Cary Grant. And
So Stella, Jeff's nurse, comes to take care of him. And she said the world is turning into peeping Toms because he's talking about the people outside in the neighborhood.
Yeah, the people should like stop and look in more than looking out. You know, she has that lovely bit of dialogue. There's several little lines of dialogue in this movie that really just hit, you know, that hit home and just... You're like, oh.
Yeah. So then Jeff says that Lisa, his girlfriend, expects him to marry her, and he doesn't want to get married yet. He basically says she's too bougie for him. I mean, he doesn't say bougie, but like, he's like, she's a socialite.
Yeah. And it's apparent by the way she dresses, because that's what he points out. You know, I'm sure those high heels will do well out in the jungle or something.
Oh my God, he doesn't talk like that.
It's called an over-exaggeration.
Okay.
It's supposed to be bad.
Okay. But
Clarence, send us the man. It's coming to kill me.
Is this the same guy that plays in Pet Sematary? Is that what you're making?
No.
That's the same voice that you're doing. That's
I know.
confused.
The joke is I do bad impersonations.
I was just asking if it was the same
it's
guy
not the
because you're
same
using
guy,
the
no.
same voice, so
No,
I
no,
thought
no.
it was the same guy.
This is my James Stewart.
Oh, okay.
Well, don't want to go down that road. Yeah, it is the same fucking voice.
That's what I'm saying. I was just confused.
Just snorted. Somebody's listening to this like, hey, man, it was really awesome when she just stopped dead and said how bad he was at this.
I was just asking a question.
Oh, we better stop laughing.
Oh,
We got to stop laughing.
This is
It was
serious.
a very serious show.
anyway, Jeff basically says he needs a simple girl that will travel with him.
Yeah, and you know what I do love about this is that their relationship isn't just one dimensional. They're not just lovey-dovey for each other the whole movie and nothing's wrong, everything's perfect. They really do work on some shit throughout this movie.
Yes.
You know?
Because Stella tells him, like, you're not going to do better than Lisa.
Yeah.
Like, any guy would be lucky to have her, and she wants you and she loves you, so you better fucking love her. That's basically
and
what
it's
Stella
great.
says.
And I love how Hitchcock lays this out too. And Hayes' script does the same thing, where like their conversations all have to kind of do with that, where they're trying to figure it out. Like they love each other a lot, but at the same time, like they're two different people,
Right.
and they're trying to come up with a compromise. Is the problem?
Right.
Because she's telling him, oh, I could get you into the fashion magazines and high fashion. And he was like, oh, yeah, that'll look great. Me showing up with combat boots and fucking 5 o'clock shadow. At one point, he's like, would you shut up for a second?
Yep, sounded just like that.
But he does it sweetly. He tells her to shut up for sweetly. I'm sorry. But yeah, I just love how their relationship is. And now Grace Kelly plays Lisa. And wow, Grace Kelly.
Oh, yeah.
You have to stop. You just pause the movie and just look at her for a second. But she was popular on set for that very reason. As she was in everyday life, she had turned down the role of Edie in On the Waterfront from 1954 as well to be in this picture. And now that role would go to Ava Marie Saint. Grace Kelly had worked with Hitchcock before on Dial M for Murder, which is another great fucking movie, great Hitchcock movie. But Stewart said that when Grace entered the set, everyone would stop what they were doing and just gaze at her.
I mean, she's gorgeous.
Yes, that's either super complimentary or super creepy, depending on the decade you're in. but really, like everybody was just taken back by her beauty. Stewart said she was kind, she was beautiful, she was just a wonderful person to have around. And speaking on age differences, a lot of people love the comment these days on, oh man, the age difference between this actor and that actor and stuff like that. I think people forget, like, it's always been like that. With this movie especially, Grace Kelly was 25 when she was in this movie. In fact, she celebrated her 25th birthday on the set.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, and James Stewart was 46.
Oh, I'm not surprised.
Yeah. It was just always like that. You just got an older man and a younger lady. I don't know what it was, but that's just how it went. And while Stewart and everyone on set loved Grace, Jimmy Stewart's wife wasn't too excited about her.
Oh, no.
And that spawns from the fact that, in 1954, at this time, Grace was kind of known for having affairs with her leading men.
Oh, no.
Yeah, now the problem arose when in a magazine interview prior to this, Kelly said that she thought James Stewart was one of the most attractive men she'd ever met.
Oh, no.
So Gloria, Stewart's wife, insisted on being set every day to keep an eye on things.
Oh, no. Insecure much?
Oh,
God.
man. I mean, it is Grace Kelly.
So Lisa comes to visit Jeff, and she invites a chef over to cook for them. I thought he was just going to stay there and cook. He doesn't. He just puts the food in the oven, whatever. Well, she says that she wants to make Jeff's last week in the cat house one that he won't ever forget.
Yeah, she gets a guy to come over with fucking lobster and a whole fucking meal gets cooked. It's great.
Right.
But now that food actually that you see them eating here in a little bit, that comes from Alfred Hitchcock's favorite restaurant. Now, here's a little bit of trivia for you guys. Now, if you remember Once Upon a Time in Hollywood, the place they go to meet Al Pacino's character is Musso and Frank's. And then that was a real place, and that's where this food comes from.
Oh, okay. Cool. Yummy. It looked good to me.
Yeah.
So they get to talking, and Lisa wants him to open a studio there in town, and he says he doesn't want to leave the magazine. She wants him to settle down. She does want to get married, and she's coming up with solutions to his problems. Well, it's not problems.
Yeah.
To her problems with it, basically. And he's like,
Yeah, because I mean, he does love what he does, and we've learned by now that he's done wartime photography. He does all this basically like wonderful, like out in the world photography for
right.
like
He
the
travels
newspaper.
and stuff. Yeah. And she wants him to settle down. So Jeff then watches out the window, and there's a sad single woman. That's, what did they call her? Lonely Heart?
Yeah, Miss Lonely Hearts.
And she pretends to have dinner with someone that's not there.
That is a depressing scene.
So sad.
If you kind of pay attention, it's kind of like parallel to what Grace Kelly's Lisa is going through. She, Miss Lonely Hearts is kind of her future self. Like is what they're talking here, because she doesn't want to be like without him.
Right. Right. She doesn't want to be lonely.
Yeah.
So then he watches the ballerina, who they call the Torso.
Yeah, Miss Torso.
Miss Torso, yeah.
She's always with her torso showing. That's the yeah.
But she's a ballerina. And she's got some in her apartment. And then there's a couple. And the wife is sick and she's in bed. She's always in her room.
Yeah.
And her husband makes her dinner and brings it to her in bed. And then there's a piano player. He, I guess, is a musician, writes songs or whatever, and plays piano up in his apartment. Lisa and Jeff go on to talk about their future. And Jeff is trying to explain to her that she's just not cut out to travel with him to these countries. He basically says that, like, you'll be living out of a suitcase, a small suitcase.
Yeah.
And eating fish heads or eating things that you
and like I said,
can't even look at.
Yeah, and yeah, I guess he does tell her to shut up a couple times because she just keeps talking over it. But I mean, the thing is, he's really is being a realist here. He's like, this is what I do. This is who I am.
Right. But she's in love with him. And so she's upset, and she wants to do these things with him. She's willing to do these things with him, even though she is a socialite. She's like, dude.
and really, I think it does take Grace Kelly and fucking Jimmy Stewart here to sell this scene, because you do feel this relationship through this entire movie.
Yeah.
It feels very lived in.
Oh, yeah. So she ends up leaving, but before she does, she says she isn't going to see him for a very long time. And he's like, how long? She's like, till tomorrow night.
She really... I love that. They do love each other. And it does feel like a more realistic relationship. Something that like you would encounter in a relationship where you're two very different people, but you still love each other. It happens. We're very different people here. But
yet the same.
But yet the same. Yeah. And I feel like they're both the same too. They're both headstrong people, and they know what they want.
Right.
Now, across the way, you get glimpses of everyday life going on with all these people and stuff like that. Now, to communicate, because like I said, he was shooting this all from Jeffrey's apartment. So to communicate with people across the way, they all had headsets on that he would talk through. Alfred Hitchcock would talk to them through there.
Oh, I thought you were talking about during the movie, like they filmed that, and I was like, did I miss that?
No.
I was so confused.
No, that would ruin the voyeurism aspect.
That's what I was thinking. I was like, wait, what?
No, Hitchcock, to direct him, he would have them wear headsets and stuff so he could communicate with everybody. Now, he would fuck with them a little bit to get realistic reactions to things. Because like at one point, the couple that you see sleeping on the balcony and the ones that have the dog.
Yeah.
At one point when it starts raining later, he had told one person, he told the husband, the guy playing the husband, to pull the mattress one way. And then he told the lady playing the wife to pull it the other way. So that's why you get that scene where they're struggling to get it in and they both just fall into the windows. And that was real. And so like Alfred Hitchcock loved that fucking take just because he got something realistic out of people. That was one of what, if you notice in a Hitchcock movie, things feel much more real than in other movies where
Right.
they, where things are a lot more dramatic and stuff like that. Sure, the drama's here, but I feel like things feel more real in his movies than they did with everybody else's,
Oh, I can agree with that.
Yeah.
So Jeff's still watching them or whatever, and he hears a glass break and a woman yell, "Don't." Then it cuts to him sleeping during a thunderstorm, and he wakes up and he sees the married man with his sick wife keep coming and going from the house with a suitcase.
Mhm.
And it's like 3:00 in the morning. And
Yeah.
he's like, why is this happening? Why does he keep doing this?
I love old school movies with this rain. The
Oh, yeah.
the fake rain and stuff coming down, which are just like hoses and stuff, and they seep them through these nets, and it's great shit. But like, so you might be thinking, well, this is all indoors. Where did all that fucking water go?
Oh God, I didn't even think about that.
They had to make a drainage system, like a custom made drainage system to seep all this water out of the studio.
Oh wow. That's why they only had one rain scene.
Yes, not too many rain scenes in this movie.
No. So the next day, Jeff tells Stella that something is weird. Something's going on there.
Mhm.
Then they notice that the wife isn't there anymore, even though she's sickly and she stays in her bedroom and all this stuff. She's not there anymore.
Yeah.
So where the fuck does she go? So Jeff thinks the man knows that he's being watched because he's like looking around all weird. And then Jeff sees the man cleaning some knives.
Which comes to the lovely point of this movie where you are with Jeff here. You're with
Right.
Jeffrey. You're seeing everything through his point of view. And this movie starts kind of fucking with you a little bit. Is what he's seeing real? Like, is what he's seeing, does it equal up to murder? And that's
Right.
the lovely part of this movie, is because like no matter how many times I watch that, Hitchcock sells it in a way to where I still feel that same feeling that, is it murder? Even though I know it is. I know the
Right.
outcome of this fucking movie, but Hitchcock sells it to you in such a way where it always gets you. You're always sucked into the voyeurism aspect of this movie.
Because it could be easily explained. I mean, the wife could have gone to the country.
Oh, right, because what we're seeing, we didn't see nobody get murdered. We don't see any
Right.
silhouettes that might look like a murder. We just heard a noise and we see some things that we perceive as suspicious.
Right.
And the only way that would happen is because of that scream and that breaking glass. That's the only thing that sets you off.
Right.
If you didn't hear that, what he's doing is normal. It's
Right.
all filtered through that perception that murder has happened. But has it? Like
Right.
that's the question here. And to do that, Alfred Hitchcock really had to play with sound. The thing about sound in movies and why it's so fucking important. It's something I always tell people. I was like, no matter what you do with your independent movie, and this is something that a lot of other directors, indie directors, have told me, is you need to pay attention to your sound.
Oh, yeah.
Because you can sell something. You can sell a scene no matter how bad it looks on camera and stuff. If your sound is good, you can get people to go along with you. And that's the thing with the sound effects in this movie. Everything sounds really good.
Oh, yeah.
And you can get sold on that breaking glass and someone screaming. And then from there on out, you're with Jeffries and thinking this dude murdered his wife.
So that evening, Lisa comes over and they're making out or whatever. She's acting all horny, like she wants to fuck or whatever.
I wonder how Jimmy Stewart's wife was doing this, because they are kissing for a while.
For a while, yeah. But Jeff, he just keeps going on and on about the salesman across the street. The man's a salesman, by the way.
Yeah.
And he starts talking like the man had killed his wife and chopped her up. And Lisa's basically telling Jeff that he's crazy and he needs to mind his own business. She also says there are probably worse things going on behind the closed windows.
And I love how Hitchcock does this, where he pans the camera over to those closed windows and then back to Stewart.
And
Stewart's like, well, no comment.
Yeah.
Because it's true. Yeah. What you can't see might be worse than what you do see.
Right.
And so like that kind of messes with the voyeurism kind of aspect of this.
Because then you're like, oh, you're right.
Yeah, like, oh, you're only paying attention to the things you see. What's really going on with those other things? There could be like fucking dead bodies hanging from the walls in there.
I mean, nobody saw in Jeffrey Dahmer's apartment. So.
See, there you go. The things you
Until they
don't see.
did.
Yeah. It's almost like the things you don't see can't hurt you in a way.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. So then the salesman catches her eye because he has a big trunk in his wife's room, and the mattress is kind of folded up on the bed. It doesn't matter. Anyway, you know what I mean? The mattress kind of folded up. So Lisa's like, wait a second. Tell me the whole story from the beginning.
And that's where he hooks her in. And he does this with other people. They get sucked into it, except for the detective, his friend.
Right.
Detective, who's played by Carney. But and that's an ongoing theme in Hitchcock's movies, if you haven't noticed. The bumbling police, you know, they're always the last to figure it out. The bad guy's always getting away with it. It always takes someone like Jimmy Stewart to fucking solve the shit.
Is this where Scooby-Doo gets their like?
Scooby-Doo was around the same time in the 60s. I mean, this is 54, but you know, later Scooby-Doo would come.
Yeah, they get some of their stuff from Hitchcock.
I think, yeah. I really do feel like Scooby-Doo owes a lot to Hitchcock. So Thorwald, or maybe murderer, is played by the wonderful Raymond Burr, and this is prior to his most famous role as Perry Mason. Have you ever heard of Perry Mason?
I've heard that name before. Yeah,
Raymond Burr would play Perry Mason for fucking ever until he died in the 90s.
Wow.
Yeah, I remember I grew up with Perry Mason because my dad loved Perry Mason. So it's weird watching this movie and he's not the central character, you know?
Right.
But now Hitchcock handpicked Raymond Burr because he could properly embody Hitchcock's, which was his send-up to his least favorite producer, David O. Selznick. Now, O. Selznick, if that sounds familiar, he was one of the biggest Hollywood producers in the 30s, 40s, and 50s, producing classics like Gone with the Wind, and he also worked with Hitchcock on Rebecca in 1940. Rebecca's a good movie, but it feels weird. And the reason is because Selznick would interfere so much with Alfred Hitchcock's directing that like Hitchcock eventually disowned the film.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. If you go back and watch Rebecca, as good as it is, it doesn't quite feel like a Hitchcock movie. So here he makes fun of this giant producer. And if you notice, like Raymond Burr even has characteristics of how Selznick would act, like putting his, the phone in the crook of his neck and stuff like that.
Oh.
So he's making fun of this giant Hollywood producer through this entire movie. And he turned him into a murderer.
Oh, God. He's like, I'll show you.
You murder my movie, I'm going to make you murder this lady.
So Jeff ends up calling his friend, who is a detective for the NYPD. The detective is weary, but agrees to drive by to see what's going on. Mm-hmm. Then the salesman has two men come to his house and take the trunk away, like a moving company or something. And Doyle, the detective, comes over and says basically that they don't have enough evidence to prove anything. And Jeff wants him to like go into the apartment and look around and all this stuff. And Doyle's telling him like, all you have is there was a woman there. She's not there anymore.
Yeah.
And there was a trunk and it's not there anymore. But you don't know what moving company took the trunk. Like he was like, you have nothing. We can't do anything with this. He was like, you have to have search warrants, but you have to have a reason to have a search warrant. None of this is going to pan out. Right. But he does agree to do some digging. So a little later, Doyle comes back and says that the couple left the apartment around 6 a.m. And Jeff says that's about the time that he fell asleep. So the salesman put his wife on a train to the country, and he even found a postcard in the mail from her or for her or something, I don't know. And he says that he cannot do anything because there's still no evidence. They have witnesses saying that the man and his wife left at 6 a.m. to go to the train station. There was a ticket bought at the train station. She got on the train and went to wherever she was going.
Yeah. And by this time, he's gotten Lisa on his side and he's got his fucking insurance lady.
His
from
nurse.
The insurance. Yeah. The insurance
Stella.
company would give you a nurse. Like, was that a thing?
It still is a thing.
Yeah. Oh, that's cool.
Yes. Kind of. It's hard to get, but yes.
Oh, I'm sure. Yeah. I mean, he's probably got some money, but yeah, Stella is played by Thelma Ritter, and she was, I believe she had a part in Bette Davis or with Bette Davis in All About Eve. But anyway, she plays this great character. I fucking love Stella.
She's very realistic
Yeah.
and almost mom-like.
Because like later they're looking and he's like cleaning the bathroom, Thorwald, and she's like, oh, he must have got a lot of blood all over them walls. And they're like, Jesus.
She's watching this like a soap opera.
Oh, she's loving it.
Oh, yeah. So that night, Jeff is still watching the salesman and as he's leaving his apartment, and Lisa shows up, and she has her own theory that the salesman got rid of his wife because he has someone else. And Lisa says that she is going to stay all weekend to help Jeff. Jeff, not okay with this, by the way.
Right.
He's like, how about you not? Basically. Like maybe they didn't ever really stay the night with each other. I don't know. I guess it's because it's the 50s. Like,
well, I believe
I don't know.
She stays the night at least one time in this movie.
No. I mean, before this, like.
Oh yeah, you typically. Well, she may not have got the chance. You know, I know it was the 50s, but not everybody adhered to that kind of like Christian upbringing kind of thing.
That's true.
But like, that's why city people were seen as weirdos.
Right.
But like, she may not have got the chance because he was gone so much.
That's true.
Yeah, she's probably getting the chance now because he's got a busted up leg.
Yeah, so she's like, I'm going to help you, whatever. So he's a little annoyed by this, but I think she's trying to show him that she can be spontaneous like he likes. He wants somebody spontaneous that's willing to do the things that he wants to do and he's passionate about. So she's like, yeah, I can do this.
Yeah, he's worried about getting tied down. He doesn't want to get tied down. He doesn't want to end up like Miss Lonely Hearts. It's like, not tied to one central location. And you could tell like Jeffries probably doesn't want to have kids, or family or anything like that. He has no interest in that.
Right. So Doyle shows up again, and he says that he found the trunk, and it just had clothes in it. Like, there's nothing bad going on. It's just the wife's clothes probably being sent to the country with her. Mm-hmm. And he's really trying to get Jeff to stop doing this. He's like, leave it alone, basically. Like, do something better with your life.
He's like, what the hell am I supposed to do?
Right.
I got these giant fucking windows.
Right. So he leaves, and Lisa closes the blinds for the night because she thinks they need a break from all of this.
Which is great because through this movie, like you can tell they don't want to do that. They don't want to look anymore.
Right.
But it's like this compulsion, and it gets greater and greater as the movie goes on until the point where they're interfering with what's going on,
Right. So a little bit later, they hear a scream. So they open the blinds back up. And one of the neighbor's dogs is dead on the sidewalk.
Which is like a cute little fucking dog that's been wandering around. And they lower it with the basket.
Right, and put it take it outside. Like instead of walking the dog, they just put it outside.
Were dogs smarter in the 50s? Because I feel like if I tried to do that with a dog now, it would just jump out and kill itself.
Maybe. I don't know.
Or the dog would shit itself and have a heart attack on the way down.
I don't know. So the dog had been strangled, and all the neighbors go to their windows except the salesman.
Yeah. So
they're convinced it was him that killed the dog because he was the only neighbor that didn't come outside when they heard the scream. So he's like, oh, fuck. So Jeff gets it in his mind that the salesman had buried part of his wife in the yard, and the dog was digging it up, so he killed the dog to further cover up his murder.
Maybe. What's cool about this movie? Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
Here's the thing to me. I was like, that's a jump. Okay, because dogs dig. Okay, they do.
It is a jump.
But I feel like it's a little bit of a reach to say that the dog was digging up dead parts because
True.
I thought the dog was digging in the beginning of the movie. I don't know.
And do you ever really find out if he did bury part of his wife there? Because I know Stella says something about, well, he couldn't have buried her whole body there.
Right.
Yeah. And you think about this. This is 1954. This is very violent. Even though you're not seeing anything, the thought of this, because that means him carrying out suitcase after suitcase. He's taking body parts around the city.
He fucking chopped her up.
Yeah, he did some fucked up shit. Because so when you really stop and think about this, and that's where I feel like the voyeurism of this plays with you a little bit more because it makes it even more brutal what has happened.
Right. He didn't just fucking kill her and like
Yeah.
he fucking murdered. Like he chopped
Yeah,
her up.
because you get to see the saw later where he's wrapping that in newspaper after he cleaned it.
Yes. So Jeff decides that he's going to write a note to the salesman. And he says, "What have you done with her?" Lisa takes the letter to that apartment and drops it off and I guess knocks on the door or whatever and runs off.
You get a lot of these shots because these are some cool fucking shots he gets, because you get like some close in when they're using the binoculars and or the telephoto lens Jeffrey has on his camera, which was actually, it belonged to the Paramount prop department. So if you look closely on that camera that Stewart is holding, James Stewart, it has like a piece of duct tape over the fucking the property of Paramount.
Oh, really?
Logo. Yeah. So anyway, you get like a view through that. You get to see everything Jeffries gets to see. And to do that, they had to come up with a new way of filming. Like, yeah, like, because you get what we know now, crane shots, you know, of stuff. You get to zoom in on stuff and stuff like that. And to get a lot of those, for director of photography, Robert Burks, who was actually a longtime collaborator with Hitchcock, had to get very creative. And what he did was he rigged up the system where a camera with a telephoto lens is mounted up to a crane, and he can bring it closer in, pull it out, wherever you want to do it, and film all these little details in close up.
Oh, that's
cool.
know,
and it really, I mean, it sells it to you, you know, like you don't feel like you're watching something faked. You do feel like you're seeing everything through his point of view with the telephoto lens and everything. So it's all completely well done. But it's funny because that little contraption that they kind of made up and stuff like that, and they had to rig, is now like a commonplace practice. You know, everybody has that crane shot and stuff like that. And the crane that can dolly you around the fucking set.
Yeah.
It's commonplace. But it's so funny. Like it's really funny to look back on Hitchcock movies and to realize that he was even more than a director. He was an innovator.
Right.
You know, we get the dolly zoom from Hitchcock, and to describe that, the dolly zoom, which I think I mentioned that on Psycho, our episode on Psycho, where you zoom in and you zoom out with the camera, and it creates this effect where it looks like the background of an actor is zooming around. It pulls out and stuff. It's a really cool effect. And like I said, the best example of this that I know everyone has seen is Roy Scheider's scene when he's on the beach in Jaws, and it hits when he realizes a shark is out there, you know, that dolly zoom that hits him. It's one of my favorite camera techniques of all time, just because of
I know
how
you
cool
talk
it is.
about it a lot.
Yeah, and it's fun to play around with because you can do it real slow, and some movies that do it real slow, and it just fucks with you. It fucks with your equilibrium.
So Lisa and Stella decide that they're going to find out what was buried in the yard. They want the salesman gone though, so they don't get hurt. Well, Jeff does or whatever. Yeah. So Jeff calls him and says that he wants to talk and sends him to some hotel. And the ladies go up and dig up the yard, but they don't find anything. So Lisa decides she's going to climb the fire escape and go into the salesman's apartment. So Stella runs back to Jeff so she can see what's going on. Well, they get distracted real quick because the Mrs. Lonely Hearts is going to commit suicide. Yeah,
she's taking all the pills because Stella pointed out what they were and stuff.
Yeah, like sleeping pills or whatever. So Jeff picks up the phone to call the police when the salesman's getting home. And Lisa's still in the apartment. And instead of telling the police about the lonely woman, Jeff tells them that there's a man assaulting a woman in the apartment and gives them the address.
And this is another neat thing that this movie really does, is because not only are you being exposed to what voyeurism is kind of with this movie, you're also being forced to take part in it. You know, like what's crazy about these coming scenes, and this scene in particular, is it's almost like when you're a voyeurist, when you're like what Jeffrey is going through here, it's like you wish the bad to happen.
Oh, yeah.
To kind of make yourself feel better about yourself or something in some way. You know, you wish these awful things to happen. So they get distracted by her about to commit suicide. Well, that danger's kind of gone. And then here's greater danger coming. And what's weird is, like, what's really cool about this is, like, Jeffries kind of stops paying attention to Miss Lonely Hearts and more pays attention to what's going on with Lisa.
Right.
You know, not only because he loves her, but also because it's like this weird fascination. Like, why can't he look away? You know, like, why can't he look away? He can look away from Miss Lonely Hearts, but he can't look away from what's happening in that apartment that he's fascinated with.
Well, that's because his woman is
right. I know, but it's just an interesting thing because you are being forced to play these out in your head.
Oh,
you know, the social contagion. Because, like, while it does do that to you, it also kind of condemns it. I mean, you do get to feel you get to see what happens. You know, when you do this kind of thing.
Oh, yeah.
You know, the ramifications of all that.
So the salesman ends up seeing Lisa and he won't let her leave. He starts to attack her and Lisa's yelling for Jeff. And Jeff can't do anything. He's got a fucking broken leg. He's already called the cops. They're 2 minutes away. And the man turns the lights out. He's going to do something, but then the police show up. Police show up and they're all talking to Lisa and the man and trying to figure out Jeff and Stella are trying to figure out what's going on because they're like, oh shit, Lisa's about to get arrested because she just broke into this guy's apartment.
Into this guy's house, yeah.
So, but through the window, Lisa puts her hands behind her back and she shows them the wedding ring that she found in the apartment, the woman's wedding ring. Oh, because before they were talking about this jewelry and this purse that the wife had left behind, and no woman's going to leave behind her wedding ring and her jewelry and her favorite purse and all that stuff if she's going out of town, which, I mean, they're right. Like, who does that? I'm not taking my wedding ring. I mean, I might take my wedding ring off, but they're not leaving it if I'm going out of town.
because they discussed this. Yeah, you're right.
Yeah. But the salesman sees this too, that she's showing them.
Oh, yeah. And this is like one of the biggest scares of this entire movie.
Oh, because he looks down.
Yeah, because it's the whole time you are the voyeur and stuff like that. And what is more scary to a voyeur than being caught?
Right.
Than looking and seeing someone stare right back at you. And Raymond Burr has this... Oh God, this look in his eyes when he looks up and, you know, the camera's right there.
Right. Oh, it's so creepy. So then the police leave with Lisa because they're arresting her. So Stella and Jeff are trying to come up with money to bail her out.
Yeah.
And like come up with the cash or whatever. So Stella leaves to go bail her out. So the police leave and a few minutes later, the salesman leaves. Well, Jeff gets a call from Doyle and tells him everything that just happened.
Yeah.
When they hang up, Jeff gets another call like immediately and he thinks it's Doyle again. So he says, I think the salesman just left his apartment. Like, doesn't say hi, who is this? He just says, man. I think he left his appointment.
Oh, the problem,
apartment.
The problems that could arise before the times of caller ID.
Right. But he quickly realizes that this is not Doyle because he doesn't say anything and just hangs up.
Oh God, the suspense and the fucking tension.
Oh yeah,
that is racking up through this.
He knows something's going on because now he's alone in his apartment.
Oh yeah.
Lisa's at the police station. Stella's on her way to the police station to get Lisa. And so he's there alone with a broken leg.
And that's the biggest fear because, like, you know, normally, like, if you're encountering something this scary and stuff like that, at least the ability to run is there, you know?
Right,
that's always lovely to have. But when you're, like, incapacitated, that's horrifying.
Oh, absolutely. So Jeff hears some stomping up the stairs to his apartment. So we know it's the salesman. And Jeff is getting ready and he's digging in his bag. He's getting all this stuff together because he's got to do something when the salesman comes in. So he has this what is that thing called?
A flashbulb. Yeah, it's the old school flashbulbs.
Yes. So as the salesman comes into the apartment, he asks Jeff what he wants because he doesn't have money. He's like, I don't have money. What do you want from me? And he says he wants the ring back. Well, Jeff tells him, I can't get you the ring back. It's at the police station now with Lisa.
Yeah.
And as the salesman steps closer to Jeff, with every step, Jeff is blinding him with repeated flashbulbs.
And this part's awesome. Man.
Yes.
Because, like, you really do, like, you get flashed yourself with these flashbulbs and stuff. And of course, it's disorienting Raymond Burr, who looks like a fucking Frankenstein's monster coming at Jimmy Stewart.
Right.
Like, Raymond Burr was a big man.
Right. So what I thought was cool, though, is every time the flashbulb went off, like, obviously it's not hurting my eyes. It's a movie. Right. But then this color of the screen changes. because if you were really in there, your eyes would be fucked up. Like, your eyes would have to get used to it again.
Yeah, and it does achieve that effect, because it does feel more realistic than it probably would in some other movies. Alfred Hitchcock, again, like I said, he was also an innovator. I don't think a lot of people, when they discuss Hitchcock, really give him that much credit for that. Well, outside of big film circles and stuff like that.
Right.
But they don't give him much credit for being an innovator because he would do all these little experiments to try to figure out what would work. Like to come up with this flashbulb effect where Stewart is flashing fucking Raymond Burr and disorienting him to give himself some extra time. To come up with that, he used flashbulbs on his crew. To see what would happen. And they were all like, yeah, it's disoriented as fuck. And so he knew that's the way to go.
Wow.
However, when he did that and he showed it to them on screen, he had it white, just a bright white flash over the screen real quick.
Yeah.
And of course, everybody's like, that's not how that looks. That's not how it looks. Like it looks a little different, like through your eyelids and stuff like that. And so what you're seeing, the color and stuff, it goes like to an orange kind of thing.
Yeah.
And that's like a recreation of what you would see if you were actually being flashed by a bulb.
No, I really liked that.
Yeah, because it feels a lot more realistic and stuff. And the tension of him having to reload the bulbs over and over again.
And try not to get burnt because I bet those were hot.
Oh, yeah, totally.
So Jeff is flashbulbing him, and then we see Lisa and Doyle across at the other apartment, and Jeff starts to yell for them through the window. He's like, he needs help. So he's like, Doyle, Lisa. So the salesman tries to throw Jeff out the window, and he almost does, but the police catch Jeff to break his fall.
I love the falling effect Hitchcock used. Like I know.
I don't like this effect. That's just me.
It's in a lot of his movies he uses. I think Vertigo is the best one. Like it has the best use of this effect that he does because it's of course rear projection.
Right.
No, he's not actually going to throw Jimmy Stewart out a fucking window.
Well, yeah. But
I think it was more, he did it this way because you could have used a stunt man, or something like that to have a falling shot. But I think Hitchcock really liked to see their faces. Because if you notice, you get to see Jimmy Stewart's reaction to this. It's like, why? Right. He always wanted that. He always wanted the facial reactions of his actors.
Because he's a masochist.
Yeah, maybe in a little bit of ways, I mean, we talked about that. He was like absolutely obsessed with his leading ladies, and obsessed with the way they looked. He had to have them look certain ways in his movies. In fact, he was talking to the costume designer about Lisa, the character, Grace Kelly's costume, because he thought she should be a little bit more bustier. Oh, so he was wanting to pad Grace Kelly's breasts, but like the costume, luckily whoever was doing costume decided not to, and they just had her hold herself a certain way. So that
wasn't needed.
It's not, but he was very meticulous like that. And he's dead now, so I can still like his art. But yeah, he might have been a masochist in that way. Who knows?
Right.
But I do think that's always been one of my theories. I think he really loved the reactions. Reaction shots is what he really wanted.
Oh yeah.
And more genuine kind of like that. Realism. I really think he really did care more about realism than he did a good stunt. Like I said, he could have used a stunt man, but I think he cared more about that realism, more about you seeing Jimmy Stewart fall.
Right. So they catch Jeff. He didn't die. And the salesman ends up confessing to everything. He says that he did bury part of his wife. He did chop her up. He did bury part of her in the yard. But the dog was digging, so he had to kill the dog and then take that stuff, the body parts that he buried, and hide them somewhere else. And he ended up throwing her into the river, basically.
Right.
The Hudson River. So they were like, oh shit, We got to find her.
That's fucking, and like I said, like this is 54, man. It's a fucking brutal, man.
Yes.
It's a brutal killing that's just happened on our screen.
Right.
And that's another thing that links to the thing where Hitchcock was always running into problems with censors and stuff like that, because his work at the time, it may seem tame to us now, but this is very salacious stuff.
Oh, yeah.
You know, we're dealing with murders and stuff, and not just a murder though. That's the thing. Not just, oh, someone got choked out on screen. No, not just that. While it may have happened off screen, it's chopping up a body.
Right. That's pretty horrific in itself.
Yeah.
So sometime later, Jeff is still watching his neighbors through the window. The lonely lady, what's her name again? Lonely Hearts, Mrs. Lonely Hearts. Mm-hmm. She didn't die. She's with the piano guy now.
Yeah. It's nice. It's nice because you get to see everybody's story wrapped up. And Jeff, during the beginning of the scenes, passed the fuck out. He's asleep. He's not looking out the window
He's not
anymore.
looking, but
we are still. That's the funny part. You know, that's the funny part about this movie is it really does show you like we are the greatest voyeurs in the world. You know, us that love movies. You know, and I kind of tend to, every time I watch this movie, that little thesis statement of Hitchcock's kind of sticks in my brain that like, we really are these giant voyeurs. Those of us who love movies. It is a form of voyeurism, I feel like, you know, in a way, you know, I'm not saying that everybody who does this loves to people watch or anything like that, but I do feel like it's slightly that way. Right. You know?
So Lonely Hearts is with the piano guy. The lady with the dog that died has a new puppy now. The couple, they have a new puppy. Mm. The ballerina's boyfriend shows up and he's like this.
I love it.
So she's always entertained.
Through the movie, they're trying to figure out what man she's going to get, what man she's going with.
Because she entertains all of these people. Mm-hmm. Like, I mean, she's not having sex with them.
Well, she's a ballerina, so you know she probably is connected to the theater circuit, and these are probably just theater people. Right.
So all these like well-dressed, handsome, like boastful men come in and out of her apartment and stuff. That sounds bad. She's on a horse. She's not sleeping with them, but she's having parties and stuff.
She's entertaining men, yeah.
But her boyfriend shows up, and he's this little tiny army guy.
I love it.
And she is so happy that he's there. And he's like...
And it is the first man you see her really get into. Like, she is entertaining men, and she's being a good host, but
she's been waiting for her boyfriend to come.
Stanley.
And we didn't really talk on the newlyweds because there was newlyweds in the beginning, but we didn't really see them throughout the movie. Right. Well, now they're having their first fight.
Yeah.
First newlywed fight. It's cute.
It's nice because it shows that, you know, life is going on and stuff. The apartment without the shade, with the shades drawn, you get to actually finally see it in there, and it was empty the whole time, and they're being painted.
Right. Well, Jeff now has 2 broken legs from that fall. And Lisa's there with him, watching him.
Yeah, and this time she is in a pair of boots and pants. She's wearing pants this time to compromise, and she's reading like a Field and Stream or something. But then she notices he's asleep and puts it away and picks up the fashion magazine.
Oh, that's what she did. Okay, I didn't catch the
it's definitely a compromise they've probably reached. But I don't know. This fucking movie, man. No fucking complaints. We'll get to that in a second. But when Rear Window came out on August 4th, 1954, it was an immediate hit. I mean, there was no, this movie didn't make a lot until late. No, this was a huge hit. We consider this movie now to be an all-time classic. So critics at the time kind of felt the same way. I mean, if you read some old school reviews, they're like, this is destined to be a big a classic film in the future. Yeah, a few here and there called Hitchcock's view on social behavior a bit glib, you know, but I don't know. I think Hitchcock's movie here kind of, there's again with that realism, you know, I don't know, it feels much more realistic what we're viewing here. You know what's funny is back on the voyeurism thing, Truffaut said it. I loved the way he put it. He would say that, he said that the courtyard is like the world, right? The courtyard's the world with all the people in it and stuff like that. And Jeffries kind of represents the director, you know, and the camera And of course, the lenses all represent the camera shooting the movie and stuff like that. Almost as if a director is almost the greatest voyeur of all time.
Oh.
You know, I just love the way he put that. And I love the analysis on this movie. You know, you could analyze this fucking movie till the cows come home. It's lovely. It's fun to talk about. And it's a simple story. I mean, you noticed today, dear listener, this is probably a shorter episode than usual, but you know, it's just such a simple, brilliant story.
Right.
Now, it would gross around $36 million against its $1 million budget. For 3 decades after the release, though, there were rights issues, meaning that the film wasn't able to buy for a long time. You know, it was televised in 1971 by NBC, but they did so illegally.
Oh,
yeah. Now, Rear Window, as I mentioned, has had a huge influences on movies to come. You know, it did get an official remake in 1998 starring Christopher Reeves, who at the time, you know, I believe, well, we lived through this, but in 96, Christopher Reeves had his accident and he was paralyzed. And so he played the lead character in it. Yeah. It's okay. It's a good movie. I think it's just fine. It was a television movie.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. And I remember it being a big event because, you know, Christopher Reeve hadn't acted at anything since his accident. And so you finally got to see him. Good, but good. It's good if you can find it. But there have been so many movies that have unofficially aped this, you know. Like I said, the list could go on. Do you remember the movie Disturbia that came out with Shia LaBeouf?
Shia LaBeouf?
Is it Shia LaBeouf? I thought it was Shia LaBeouf. Shia LaBeouf sounds cooler.
You cannot talk today,
I
can
cannot.
you? It's Shia LaBeouf.
I think it's just Shia LaBeouf. That's a dumbass name. Anyway,
his name.
Yeah, just dumb. But
did I see that movie? No.
Yeah, it's
Have
a
I seen
great
any
movie.
No.
I feel like it's a direct ripoff of this, but again, the filmmakers of that movie said it wasn't, and they even got sued over it.
Oh shit!
But it's a good version of this. I feel like it was a very good movie. I think that court case got thrown out, but I think this is one of the movies that filmmakers tend to see and say, "I want to do that." You know, I want to capture those feelings and do what this movie does, and you just can't fucking do it.
Good luck.
Yeah, you're just never gonna fucking do it. You can, like I said, I think the greatest version of this kind of story is Brian De Palma's Body Double. I think that's the one to go see if you want a more updated version of this. But I think this movie, as far as older movies, I think this is great. This is a great rewatch. I didn't feel like I had seen this a million times when I watched it again.
Right.
You know, it feels as fresh and relatable as it did probably when it fucking came out. And the tension and suspense still fucking catches you because you're just sweating bullets along with Jeffries as he's looking out that window. And I love how this movie starts out, you know, how it starts out with the window. You know, you immediately go through it. It's like Hitchcock is inviting you to look out his window.
Oh, yeah.
And look upon his world and stuff. And it's just a wonderful way to open it. And that bookends the movie. You know, at the very end of this movie, the shades go down, you know, and there's that Paramount logo superimposed over the shades and the window's closed. You know, the movie's over. The ultimate experience as an audience member, the greatest voyeur is over now. You know, right. The whole fucking thing. You could just analyze this thing to death. But, you know, enough about me. Oh, this makes the perfect movie list, by the way.
Oh.
But enough about me. What did you think about 1955's or 54's? Wow, I cannot talk tonight. 1954's Rear Window.
I like it. Because I'm nosy. I'm a nosy bitch. I want to know what everybody's doing in their own shit. I think that's why I like TikTok so much.
Well, and like I said, it is something we can all relate to. Whether you like it or not, we are voyeurs. I really do think everybody in this world is. You know, and credit to the people who can fucking not go to TikTok or not, you know, because no matter what, even if you hate TikTok like I do, you still find yourself stopping and looking.
Oh, yeah.
You know?
But here's the thing. Then you've got, okay, you're like, oh, I don't like TikTok, whatever. Okay, but then you're watching National Geographic with the animals. And you're watching what the animals are doing.
Yeah.
Like, or you're watching reality TV or just movies. Movies are
Again, yeah.
voyeuristic. Like you're
It's wild, you know? And I know movies are fiction and stuff like that, but you know, it's still, I feel like it's still a form, you know? It definitely, like this movie definitely points it out to you.
right.
You know, it really shows you that and shows you the ramifications of real life voyeurism and all that kind of shit, you know?
I don't know. I get them. I like murder mysteries. I like voyeurism. So this movie was great. But would I go to the extent that they went to in this movie? I'd have to pull the shades. No, I wouldn't.
See,
That's the thing.
That's the thing. And that's what really gets you is because like even with Jeffrey's character, you know, when he's watching Lisa across the way, he could look away, but it's almost like he's struggling to look away. You know, it's not that he's struggling to watch. I feel like he's struggling to look away.
Yeah.
You know, he wants to watch because if you notice when those lights get shut off with her in that apartment, he starts really struggling to see, you know, like he can't see. And I know it's because he can't see what's going on. So he wants to know what's going on. But at the same time.
But here's the thing. I have a question about this.
Okay.
You keep talking about them looking away. His girlfriend's in the apartment where a guy's going to go. Why would he look away?
Would I want to see you get murdered?
Oh,
see what I mean?
That's why I was trying to get your point of view on that.
Like you would think in normal life, if that was happening right in front of you, right in front of me, if you were getting stabbed to death, I would look away. I would want to look away. But it seems like you introduced that aspect of voyeurism to the whole situation. Whoa, it's almost like you're forcing yourself to look away.
Right.
You're struggling not to watch, you know, like you can't help yourself. You have to watch.
I didn't even think of it that way.
And you put it the same way. You know, we could sit here and say, oh, fuck, I'm not a voyeurist.
Right.
And then you go and turn on like the Jersey Shore or some shit like that. Our whole fucking society is perpetrated on that.
Oh, yeah.
That's why things like Instagram are popular. You know, do we need to see people's food? No, but we're humans and we love it.
Right.
We eat that shit up. You know, it's just how it is. we want to see what's beyond that window, you know?
Right. And what other people are doing in their lives. And I want to know what people are doing too. Like,
yeah, it's wild because you know it's wrong. And it is that excitement, you know? And like I said, there is a fetish to it, you know, it is whether you want to or not to admit that. Like not saying it's sexual, you know, a fetish doesn't necessarily have to be sexual in nature, but you know, like, but you do like, you can't help yourself.
Right.
You know?
Anyway, I liked it. I'd watch it again. I want to watch the remake.
Yeah, we should. Yeah, I'll see if I can find it. Shit, I don't even know where to find that thing.
Or whichever one you were talking about.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Are you talking about Brian De Palma's film?
I don't know. Whichever one you were talking about that was good.
Body Double's great. If you want a sleazier version of this, Body Double's the way to fucking go.
Oh, yeah.
Because you know De Palma. He's going to give you that sleaze along with the good story.
That sounds good to me.
He's sleazy Hitchcock is what I've always called De Palma. Oh, but no, yeah, it's just there's something about this fucking movie that I enjoy each time, and like, how did you feel about your first experience with like because I feel like with these classic movies, I should really ask you that because Grace Kelly and Jimmy Stewart are like household fucking names when it comes to classic actors. You know, a lot of people go to that or they go to Cary Grant or something like that. So how was your first Jimmy Stewart movie? Like, what do you think about him as an actor? And what do you think about Grace Kelly?
Here's the thing with me is like, I don't care. Cool. They're big actors and stuff. I really could give them shit less.
I would say at the base of any good actor, like the basic thing for you to consider someone a great acting performance, if you're an everyday person and you're not me,
right?
I would say the basic thing would be, did they sell the character to you? Did you feel like this was a character, like, and not just the actor?
Okay.
That's a weird. I see.
It's hard
That's
to
a weird,
say.
yeah, that's weird to say because like now that I'm thinking about that fucking question, that would require you to know what the hell I'm talking about. Like there is a distinct feeling, whether you've seen another movie, like let's use Jimmy Stewart for example, whether you've seen another movie or not, there is some kind of feeling that an actor can put off to you to where he's just being Jimmy. Like even if you haven't seen any other movie. Like, but at the same time, he's embodying this character. Like, did he sell you as you're watching a character, you know, not the actor?
Lisa did.
Yeah.
Yeah. I don't know. I have this thing with people that are just sitting in wheelchairs the whole movie. Why did we do this two movies in a row?
We did have two wheelchair bound people back to back here.
I don't know. It just, I don't know. He was just a guy in a chair. Like, it wasn't anything special to me.
To me, I think that's a harder role. I really do think when you're wheelchair bound in a movie or something like that in a movie, I think that's a harder role to play. Even though nowadays, you know, you would probably be ridiculed for having someone who's able-bodied play a wheelchair bound person.
Well,
but
he has a broken leg. Anybody can have a broken leg.
Shit, tell that to the fucking Twitter. Whew.
Oh my God, anybody can have a fucking broken leg.
Yeah, they were bitching about fucking the whale. Did I tell you about that?
Yes.
I was like, 600-pound people aren't healthy. I'm sorry. You guys burned me at the fucking stake, but if you weigh 600 pounds, it's not good for you. You're near death.
Right.
Like, the whale is not a man in a fat suit. The whale is an actor portraying someone who is dying.
Right.
Like, you can't get an actor to play that because it's not healthy. It's a health hazard. Right. I'm sorry.
But I don't know. I guess I'd have to see them in more things to really know.
I get you there.
They're not.
I can say it's hard for me to ask you questions like that because I've seen everything.
Right.
It's so
hard.
And
it's not compelling. This movie is not like a life-changing movie for me. I didn't just because I life-changing. Well, for me to care about the actors, it would have to be life-changing.
Oh, wow. Like, okay.
I don't know how to
explain that busts opens a can of worms because I feel like movies during this time period really required an actor to act their fucking ass off, you know? Whereas nowadays you could like throw an actor on a green screen and have him, you know, do a bunch of lines and it'd probably be just fine. But I think something was required of actors back then. And a lot of it came from their own personality being injected into the character they were playing. And so like, that's where I'm coming at it. Where I do think that in some of these movies, the good ones, you know, that there was a level of acting that's a little bit far more superior than what we have today.
I don't know. I guess the acting was just fine. Like,
but what I want to know is like, what do you consider life? Is there a role that you can point to us, the listener and stuff? Because remember, you know, the people listening to this podcast have seen everything probably like me, but like for you, you know, you're the everyday person. You're the Jimmy Stewart of the podcast. So like, is there a role?
Okay, the only thing I can really think of, okay, that sticks out in my mind that is amazing to me that I've seen. Okay, so don't criticize me on this, people. Okay, I haven't seen a lot of movies.
It's not a big deal, man. You remember. If it gives you joy and it vibes with you, it does not fucking matter what anybody else thinks.
Okay.
But, yeah.
So I'm going to have to say Heath Ledger in The Dark Knight.
Really?
Yeah. Like as the Joker, like that sticks out to me. Like that was a compelling acting to me. And it's not because he's dead. It's because from the moment that I saw the preview, I went to see I Am Legend in the IMAX. They played that bank scene from The Dark Knight as a preview.
Yeah, I actually went to see I Am Legend in the theater just to see that trailer.
Right. So I got to see that trailer. I didn't know I was going to see that.
Oh, wow.
Like I didn't know I was going to see that. So it starts playing. And that's the like first preview. Like there were just no other previews before that.
Yeah, I think they played the first 5 minutes of that movie.
Yeah, so like that was the preview. And I was like, oh my God, I have to see this movie. And I didn't even care about I Am Legend after that. Like I was just like, fuck this movie. I want to see that movie. Just on that first 5 minutes preview that I saw.
Okay.
So like, to me, Rear Window was a good movie, yes, and the acting was just fine. I mean, I've seen way worse acting, I promise you that. But
See, okay, that kind of opens my eyes a little bit because now I want to show you more movies with method actors. So what what Heath Ledger was doing in that movie with his performance was method acting.
Right.
You know, he became the Joker,
right,
as it were, you know.
So that, to me, that compels me more than just people sitting in the room
He's fine.
people.
Again, remember, like, whatever gives you joy and whatever sells it on you, it doesn't matter.
The acting in this movie is just fine, but you could have put anybody there.
Is there a performance so far this month? You know, counting Psycho, Betty Davis. For me, I think no one tops Betty Davis.
Okay, yeah.
No one tops Betty Davis' performance.
That's exactly it, too. But did she not do a form of method acting?
She did. Yeah.
Yeah.
So see, I think, and this is great. This is a great thing when it comes to movies and discussing movies, because a lot of people do have a preference for acting.
I'm gonna have to say,
I go both ways. I love method actors and I love traditional actors, stage actors and stuff like that.
Right.
Stuff you're seeing in this movie, traditional acting.
Which the traditional acting is fine, but there's something to the method acting, and I don't know. It's the erraticism, like, these people are erratic and they're acting erratic, and it's hard to do that. So I feel like they're putting more effort into it.
Oh, yeah, I can see that.
And so it makes it more meaningful for me because they are putting an effort into it.
Interesting, yeah.
And like the Suicide Squad movies, everybody's like, "Oh, the Joker, and that's great." Well, no. It's hard.
Who the fuck said the Joker was great in those movies?
I don't know, but they're stupid. If they like Jared Leto, that's who it was, right?
Oh, you're talking about Jared Leto apologists. I'm sorry, you guys. Jared Leto has not given
But if you like,
he's only given 2 great performances in his entire career, and that's the Dallas Buyers Club and Requiem for a Dream. I don't think he's that great of an actor,
right? But like, really, Harley Quinn in that movie. Who was that? What's her name?
Margot Robbie?
Yeah, Margot Robbie in that movie is really like, she's giving it her all.
She is a very good actor.
Oh, yeah.
Especially like Once Upon a Time in Hollywood.
God.
While she doesn't look like, she doesn't really look quite like Sharon Tate. Just the spirit she brings.
Oh, yeah.
It's Sharon Tate you're watching.
Definitely.
It doesn't fucking matter whether she looks like it or not.
And so this movie's fine. The acting is great. But it's not, it is, it is what it is. It's a movie. You could have put anybody in there. I don't know these people. So
would it be fair to say, I'm sorry, you guys, that we're going so long, but I thought that this is a great discussion to have on Classics Months, because we are kind of comparing the classic acting to, you know, the method acting that would come a little later, you know.
Right.
Method acting's been around for a long time, you know. It's not like a new thing. But like but there is distinct visions of acting. But like that is interesting to compare to, because that would mean, is it safe to say with these older movies, aside from Betty Davis's performance, like I said, dear God, that is a performance for the ages. But aside from the acting aside, would it be safe to say that these older movies more sell you on story?
Yes, absolutely. The acting, I don't know any of these actors. I don't care. Like, if I watched a bunch of these movies, I might, like a bunch of their movies and stuff like maybe I would care. But as someone who hasn't,
because I feel like
they could have put anybody there.
Because there is kind of a method to the madness of picking the classics this month, because I feel like these are, in their own right, each groundbreaking movies. Each one of these kind of revolutionized the way cinema took off.
Right. I could see that.
You know, Psycho really revolutionized the way we look at slashers and stuff like that. And the way we look at people who are mentally deranged in a movie. You know, in Whatever Happened to Baby Jane, that was the start of hacksploitation, you know, where the older ladies could now be the murderers and the bad guys and stuff like that. Today's film, voyeurism. You know, a voyeurist and stuff like that, and murder mystery and shit like that. All these really did have such an effect on cinema, you know? And so like, that's why I chose those. And I wonder if it is because we're getting down, you know, Psycho has been done. you know,
Right.
a million times. Slashers, you know, like slashers owe a great deal of respect to Psycho, you know, Betty Davis, you know, in that movie, and with whatever happened to Baby Jane, you know, and they're all in their way bare bones stories.
Right.
You know, they're the rawest form of these stories that have just been repeated and repeated in other movies through the ages. You know,
I get that. I get what you're saying. Yeah. And that's great. But you asked me about the acting and you asked me about the actors. In all of these movies, to me, you could have put any actors in there and I wouldn't have known any different.
Interesting. Yeah.
I mean, unless they were like really, really bad actors.
I mean, and you'll see more James Stewart movies on this podcast and stuff like that later on in the future. And so we'll probably reevaluate then. I think it's kind of unfair to ask you, well, how good of an actor is James Stewart when this is the only movie you've seen?
I don't know.
I don't know.
He solved a murder mystery. Like,
I see acting has that effect on me though. Like, cause I could see a movie with one person. I've never seen any of their other work, right? I could see this one movie and I'll be like, I fucking love this person. Like I love watching them, you know, for me, like,
well, okay. So the way that I see it though, is they're doing their job right. That doesn't mean they're a good actor though. That means they're doing their job right for this performance.
Right.
Okay. That means that the writers were good.
Oh, wow. That's an interesting
That's
way to
how
look
I
at
see
it. Yeah.
The writers were good in that.
Well, it's true. I think it all goes hand in hand. Yeah.
Like, I'm going to use Evil Dead, for example.
Use it.
Okay.
We're having a big old film discussion.
To me, the performance that Bruce Campbell gives is a great performance. I don't necessarily like the writing.
Okay.
And I don't necessarily like those movies in particular. I like the first one. Definitely didn't like the second one. Whatever one. The Army of Darkness. I didn't like that one. But was his acting still great in it? Yes. Very physical actor. Very in his role.
Okay.
I can't see him as anybody else because I've seen him as Ash. I don't like to see him as anybody else. And I know most people feel that way.
Okay.
Doesn't mean I like the movies. He was still a good actor.
And that's wild. That's wild because like the first James Stewart movie I ever saw was It's a Wonderful Life. And as soon as I saw that movie, and this is when I was much younger, again, the OETA movie club, I owe them a lot of respect for introducing me to a lot of these classics. But like when I first saw It's a Wonderful Life, like I was immediately sold with James Stewart, you know, immediately. I hadn't seen any other movies with him. I just knew I like this. I like what this person brings to the screen. Same thing with like Gary Oldman. Gary Oldman is one of these actors who I say is a joy to watch. You know, it doesn't matter what shit they put him in. It's a joy to watch Gary Oldman do the craft. You know, like it's there's just those certain actors.
Like I see that.
Yeah.
But these actors in this movie for me, nah.
Interesting. Okay, well,
that doesn't mean other ones of their movies wouldn't.
Hey, you never know. You never know. And we'll get to a few other movies like that in the future. Maybe we'll do It's a Wonderful Life sometime. Because
I've never seen that movie.
That's wild that you haven't seen It's a Wonderful Life.
No.
Clarence.
Is that the one where the kid like gets his tongue stuck to the pole?
No. That's A Christmas Story. That came out much later. It's a Wonderful Life is where the guy's going to commit suicide and then the guy takes him and shows him what his life would be like if he didn't exist and stuff like that.
Scrooge?
Basically, but different telling. I mean, all the Christmas movies basically are just a retelling of fucking A Christmas Carol.
Okay.
So, it's a good movie though. It's a good movie. Can't believe you've seen Scrooge before. It's a Wonderful Life.
I played in the play Scrooge.
You did?
Yes, I did.
Oh my God. Well, anyway, that's, I know we had a big old fucking film discussion at the latter half, but I think these older movies really do that to you.
Oh yeah.
I think it really drags the film discussion out. You know, I don't know what it is about these old classics that just do that to me. I just start talking about movies and shit like that. It's great. Even though I do that just fucking randomly. I'm like an Alzheimer's patient in here, just randomly blurting out shit about movies. But anyway, next week we're getting a little different.
Oh God.
I'm going to 1955 for Les Diaboliques, which is another groundbreaking film. And it's our first French film.
Great.
Yeah, I saved the best for last. No, I don't know how you're going to feel about this one. I think this movie is a technical wonder for movies back then and stuff like that. Very groundbreaking in its depiction of stuff. And there's a brutal fucking scene that I can't wait for you to see.
Okay.
Yeah. Just remember that compared to American cinema at the time, the French and the Europeans were going a little further than we all did.
Oh, no.
You know, so we're showing some shit, but I can't wait for you to see this. It's disturbing on a few levels,
Nice.
but it's a good fucking movie. It's one of my favorite French films. And so join us next week when we tackle that. I'm Lee Evans saying stay spooky.
And I'm Brittany. Stay horrific.
Clarence, he's coming to kill me.
Oh, my God.
Thanks for listening. To get a hold of us and submit your stories, fan mail, and death threats, you can find us on Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, and nightofthehorrorfile.com. Our theme song was written and performed by John Brennan, used with permission. Find John at shopjb.bandcamp.com and at badtechno.com. If you like what you hear, leave a good review wherever you listen to podcasts, and share the show on your social media. See you next week.